G'day cocktail lovers, how are you? I hope you're keeping well. And here's some cocktails to mark the 4th of July. Big day in the US of A, of course. Lots going on. Strange times now. We can ask ourselves what's really appropriate to celebrate, both in terms of things potentially going a bit wrong societally, and also it really shouldn't be gathering in big crowds, which I think is going to happen in the US, which is going to turn out to be unfortunate, I think. But anyway, leaving all that aside, let's just have some drinks. And for this I decided, how can I go with cocktails and talk about quintessential Americana, because obviously such a big country, there's such big differences about the place, particularly with people coming from all around the world to make up the rather populous US of A. But my plan, I'm actually going to do 3 cocktails, and I'm going to go East Coast, West Coast, and New Orleans for the South. And I could have done way more than that, but I thought 3, that's enough. That's a lot for one video, but that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start off East Coast, New York. Now, there are a couple of cocktails you could say are quintessentially New York. To me, that would be the Martini and the Manhattan in particular. Although if you're a Sex and the City fan, you might say a Cosmopolitan. But I've already done videos with both Martinis and Cosmopolitans, so I'm going to go a Manhattan, which I am quite fond of, a good Manhattan. And the other interesting thing about the Manhattan is it's a comparatively simple drink, so there's lots of variations, lots of little tweaks. A basic Manhattan is a whiskey, vermouth, and bitters. So it's a tiny variation of a martini, basically. The whiskey is usually rye whiskey, though it's not limited to that. Vermouth is usually a sweet vermouth, though it's not always limited to that. Bitters, we normally just go for good old Angostura bitters, but again, a lot of people like to play with it, maybe some orange bitters. I'm going to do a slight variation, what's known as a Greenpoint variation on a Manhattan. Still 2 ounces of rye whiskey, but instead of 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, there's half an ounce of sweet vermouth and half an ounce of yellow chartreuse. And I don't actually have yellow chartreuse, but I have a very good substitute, an Australian spirit called Ochre Gold, as very herbal and has a similar profile to yellow chartreuse. So this is a bit of an Aussie-American crossover with an American rye whiskey, and I'm using an Australian sweet vermouth and the Australian bush liqueur Ochre Gold. Let's get to it. There's no citrus or anything that needs to be blended in this cocktail, so this is a stirred cocktail. Starting out with 2 ounces of rye. I'm using one of the classics, a Rittenhouse 100 proof bonded in bottle. This one is been recommended to me so many times, so I made sure to get some, and it certainly goes very well in cocktails. I'm adding just half an ounce of sweet vermouth. This one is an Australian one, Regal Rogue's Lively White, fearlessly handcrafted. Put a nice flavour in there with 15 mils of sweet vermouth. And this is my yellow chartreuse substitute, Ochre Gold, an outback liqueur flavoured with unique Australian botanicals. It's going to give quite a nice flavour. Again, just half an ounce, 15 mils of the Ochre Gold going in. Finally, a couple of dashes of Angostura bitters. And now we are going to give this a stir. A little bit of dilution. Get the drink nice and chilled. Now with my Hawthorne strainer, I'm going to strain that into a glass I had chilling. I'm using a Nicanora. Seriously, put it in whatever you like, whether it's a coupe, a rocks glass. It's normally not done on ice, but you know what? Have it your way, not what someone else says you should. So here we go with the Greenpoint. Oh, that's pretty good, because the Rittenhouse rye is quite a strong flavour, It's got more spicy notes than, say, a bourbon does. But with the countering of the sweet vermouth and the aromatic ochre gold or yellow chartreuse, it's actually quite a complex drink. You might be worried something as bold as a 100 proof Rittenhouse rye might dominate a drink, particularly when it's 2/3 of the drink, but it's actually really nicely balanced and, dare I say, a little bit sophisticated. Next up, we're traveling down south for another stirred cocktail with some similar ingredients, but it's going to have a very different taste profile. This one's called Cocktail à la Louisiane, and it also has rye whiskey and sweet vermouth in it, but in different measures. Also has Benedictine, which is another herbal liqueur, but quite different to yellow chartreuse or ochre gold. And we'll be using Peychaud's bitters, Creole bitters, rather than Angostura bitters. This one also has a cheeky bit of absinthe in it. First up, 3/4 of an ounce of our rye whiskey is going in. We're also adding 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. So the ingredients are equal partners in this one rather than the rye dominating. And as I said, equal parts, so 3/4 of an ounce of the Benedictine will go in as well. We'll add 2 dashes of the Peychaud's bitters and just a dash or two of absinthe. We'll see how steady my hand is. Hopefully I don't overdo it. That's plenty. Give that a stir for about 20 seconds. And now I'm straining that into a coupe glass I've had chilling. It's a nice red colour, which is mainly coming from the Peychaud's bitters. And there's a lot going on here. As I said, on the surface you might go, what, another drink with rye and sweet vermouth in it? This is completely unlike the Manhattan or the Greenpoint that I did. The different ingredients and the different levels of the ingredients just create a completely different drink. And even the different bitters, the Angostura aromatic versus Peychaud's Creole bitters, gives just a completely different aroma and a taste profile. I'm glad I only put that tiny bit of absinthe in. It's not overpowering, but you can taste it, and that's a really, really nice drink. For our final drink, the shaker's coming out. I'm going West Coast. When I think West Coast USA, I always think of tiki drinks, Don the Beachcomber, and that faux South Pacific vibe that went along with the tiki bars. Now this drink, a lot of people technically say is not tiki, and technically it's not, but a lot of people associate it with it because it's basically pineapple and coconut and rum. And what's more tiki than this? Well, this is actually Puerto Rican in origin, the Pina Colada. And Puerto Rico, being a part of the USA, still fits. It fits with the West Coast vibe, and its place of origin is part of the United States of America. So it fits with our 4th of July theme. Now there is, as I said, the basics of a Pina Colada are rum, coconut, pineapple. And you can get a hell of a lot of variance between that. And it's not just coconut. What's usually prescribed is cream of coconut. And there's a particular brand that's most often used called Coco Lopez. Can be difficult or expensive to get depending where you are, but it is really easy to make a homemade version that doesn't have all the preservatives the canned version have, because it is really just coconut milk, which is usually between 15-18% fat, and sugar. It's like 50-50. And I do have a video coming up soon where I make a few syrups, including some homemade cream of coconut. And like I said, it's dead easy. It's 50% coconut milk, 50% sugar. The sugar, oddly, changes the consistency of the coconut milk. Coconut milk is usually quite thick because of the fat content, and very white. Adding the sugar makes it less viscous and a little bit translucent, which is quite interesting. I'm down to the last of my homemade cream of coconut because it just tastes so damn good. But this will go well in our pina colada. And I'm just gonna, again, like I said, when it's just rum, coconut, pineapple, and you can play with the edges. So there's going to be one or two little tweaks in this, but I'll give you this particular version of a pina colada. First up, 2 ounces of white rum. White rum is normally recommended for a pina colada, but honestly, I don't think you have to be a slave to any rules. And to give it a slightly different flavor, I'm going to add just half an ounce, 15 mils of cachaça. If you're not familiar with cachaça, it's essentially a Brazilian cousin of rum. Rum is, the base is usually molasses, which is the boiled down juice of sugarcane, whereas this little beauty, the cachaça, is made from sugarcane syrup before it's boiled down to form molasses. So they've got a lot of similarities, but they have their subtle differences as well. So I'm going to add 15 mils, half an ounce of cachaça. Here comes the pineapple. I'm adding 3 ounces of pineapple. You can have a bit more or a bit less according to your taste, because I've seen quite a variation in the amount of pineapple juice recommended. Everyone says fresh pressed is best. Hey, if you can get fresh pressed, good for you. If you can't, something from a bottle or a can. Let's be real, fresh pressed can be quite hard to get. So I'm adding 3 ounces of pineapple juice. And for a little tartness, 15 mils, half an ounce of lime juice. Now for our cream of coconut. I'm going to add 1 ounce. A lot of recipes split the sort of creamy factor between cream of coconut and cream. I'm not that fond of cream, and I actually don't have any in the house because I'm not that fond of it. So I'm going to go 1 ounce of my homemade cream of coconut, which is just about seeing that off, and I guess I'll have to make some more. Now I'm going to give this a good solid shake, because here's a dirty secret that people in bars don't necessarily want you to know. If you add coconut milk, cream of coconut, cream or milk to a cocktail that also has an acidic content, like the lime juice and the pineapple, the milk component will curdle when it comes into contact with the acidic content. So you have to shake it good and hard so it all re-blends and is nice and smooth. Or you can do a thing I like to do and actually take advantage of that curdling process and milk clarify the cocktail. And I happen to have done that with this same pina colada recipe earlier, and I'm going to show you the two side by side. The trick is, I actually was following a recipe I saw on a YouTube channel called Cocktail Chemistry. I think that was actually the first channel that I saw do a milk clarified cocktail that made me want to try it. And now I'm more than a touch obsessed by the milk clarification process. But he made one where he made the cocktail with coconut water because he thought coconut milk would be too viscous. And then he clarified the drink with dairy milk. But you don't need to do the dairy milk step because coconut milk has the fat content that will curdle and actually clarify the cocktail for you. And I honestly wasn't 100% sure that the cream of coconut would do it as well. I wasn't sure if the sugar had, changed the chemical composition or not, because it certainly looks different. That's why I did the clarification off camera. Also because it takes a while. I did it yesterday and it's worked beautifully. So I'm going to shake this little number, put it in a nice tall glass, and then compare the unclarified pina colada with a clarified pina colada. Now there's a fair bit of volume in this cocktail, so you want a decent sized glass. The world's your oyster with a particular style. I'm going for this tall glass that I've chilled, straining the drink in there. And I just realized, as I did it, I didn't really need to strain it because there would be no harm in having the ice in the drink. So I think, there you go. I didn't even plan that, and it's almost perfect. There you go, your classic Pina Colada. Very creamy and foamy looking. Very summery for me here in the middle of winter in Australia, but it really is a decadent drink. I really enjoy a Pina Colada. What about a clarified Pina Colada? Here's one I prepared earlier. This is literally the same ingredients as this. And because I used the coconut, cream of coconut, to clarify the cocktail rather than shaking it and mixing it in, all the coconut fats have been filtered out and all the color has been pulled out. So this lovely clear color. So, this is just fantastic. This is good. This is like, it's like 8 out of 10. That's a really nice drink. And yeah, if I was sitting by a pool in summer, this would be just awesome. This is like 9.5 out of 10. The scary thing, this doesn't taste much like alcohol, which is what makes tiki drinks scary. This barely tastes of alcohol at all, and there's a decent amount of rum in here. So as I go off camera, double fisting my two variants of a Pina Colada, I guess all that's left for me to say is, yeah, happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to friends in the US of A. Enjoy yourself. Be safe, as safe as possible. Please think about social distancing. Please, please. I'm really worried about what's going to happen in the next couple of months. But yeah, whether you want to go East Coast, West Coast, or down south, and hell, you know, I could have done the Pacific Northwest as well, the Canadian border. There's so many flavors around. But I think this is a little virtual cocktail trip around the US. Not bad at all. Now I've got a bunch of cocktails to drink. Woe is me. I'll leave you and say cheers.